I Hate the News is the weekly news bulletin from I Hate Politics podcast, a show about a human activity we love to hate. I'm Sunil Dasgupta. It's November 26th, 2024, Thanksgiving week. Maryland leaders try to walk a thin line to manage the coming damage from the new federal administration, while the Key Bridge, the new FBI headquarters, 140,000 federal workers, and hundreds of thousands more in agencies and federal contractors hang in balance. Two Montgomery County legislators break from party orthodoxy. One toward open primaries, and the other talks about balancing tenants' rights with development. Maryland's People's Council, in a filing with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, FERC, says that the 13-state Regional Transmission Organization, PJM, of which the state is a part, has imposed unfair and unreasonable cost burdens on state ratepayers. In Prince George's County, Route 1, Baltimore Avenue, the main thoroughfare in College Park and the University of Maryland gets a makeover. In Montgomery County, MCPS indicates a coming end to the policy of paying for all AP and IB tests, moving back to the older policy of means-tested support.
I Hate Politics is brought to you by the Political Science Program at UMBC Shady Grove, where you'll learn a strong foundation in public policy, pre-law, and international affairs for an impactful career in a number of essential areas. Learn more at shadygrove.umbc.edu.
I Hate Politics is a podcast about our neighborhoods, workplaces, schools and streets, and our local governments as they function in diverse and democratic societies. This means our politics are messy, dirty, sometimes corrupt, with often self-serving politicians. But no matter how much we may hate politics, we are never exempt from it, even when we refuse to participate. In fact, the purpose of politics is to keep society moving precisely when we don't agree with each other, like now.
When I fall down, I will stay down.
Music for this episode comes from Sting Pain Index, a band for the moment spanning red, blue, and purple states, Maryland, Virginia, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, and Texas. Jeff Amos on guitar and lead vocals, Scotty Lowen on guitar and bass, Sam LeGrone on bass and synths, Ben Heath, guitar and synths, and Montgomery County's very own planning board commissioner, James Hedrick, on the drums. Their new album is called Songs About Fracking and available on Bandcamp. Sting Pain Index.
On November 5th, they elected to make Donald Trump the next president of the United States. And I do want to be clear that on the places where we can find common ground with the new administration, we will. And we owe that to the people of the state. And I want to be very clear. This administration is also ready to push back on the new administration when it is necessary.
That's Maryland Governor Wes Moore speaking last Friday at the Committee for Montgomery's annual breakfast. Question is, will this work? Cooperate when you can, defect when necessary, is the very essence of America's long tradition of coalition politics. People and legislators coming together, for example, on how to prosecute the Cold War, but deferring on school vouchers or single-payer health care. The approach is rooted in small r Republican ideals, where elected officials make up their minds on issues as the times and events change. But President-elect Trump is unlikely to buy. He is clearly ready to work with former rivals. All of them, Vice President-elect J.D. Vance, Health Secretary nominee Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Secretary of State nominee Marco Rubio have previously compared Trump to Hitler, but they have all now bowed on one knee and kissed the ring. Cooperate when able, resist when necessary is not how the new president is likely to work because he accommodates others only after their complete and abject submission. Which is why Congressman Jamie Raskin's invocation of Thomas Paine to describe the coming fight may be what's really necessary for Democrats to feel empowered and ready.
I'll leave you with the words of Tom Paine. These are the times that try men and women's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will shrink at this moment from the service of their cause and their country, but everyone that stands with us now will win the love and the favor and the affection of every man and every woman for all time. Tyranny, like hell, is not easily conquered, but we have this saving consolation: the more difficult the struggle, the more glorious in the end will be our victory. Let's make that victory ours, Montgomery County.
After the big speeches, there was a panel of legislators previewing the upcoming 2024 General Assembly session, and two local legislators, Senator Will Smith Jr. from District 20 and Delegate Lily Chi from District 15, broke from party orthodoxy. Lily Chi wants to reform primary elections. While she framed the issue in terms of expanding immigrant voices and small business owners, she was in fact pointing in the direction of open primaries, which would give non-Democrats a way to weigh in Democratic primaries and balance out progressive voices. In heavily one-party jurisdictions such as Montgomery County and Maryland, and maybe even Texas, primaries have become more important than general elections, and non-Democrats are essentially frozen out of the process. Democrats in blue jurisdictions and Republicans in red jurisdictions have repeatedly rejected open primaries. Will Smith brought up the idea of balancing tenants' rights with the imperatives of development, which he said was funded in part by pension funds that held retirement monies saved by working people. And development projects making money benefited those retirement account holders as well. There has long been tension between renter advocates and pro-growth housing types, the yes in my backyard YIMBY supporters, who believe that housing affordability and indeed better quality housing will come if there is more supply of housing, and renter protections by and large are a constraint on new development. Smith is likely the first Maryland leader to speak openly and explicitly about a grand bargain between tenant advocates and pro-supply advocates and developers. A few days before the Committee of Montgomery breakfast, Montgomery County legislators held their priorities hearing and were given an earful about Maryland's support for Israeli companies using taxpayer dollars. Here is former Maryland delegate from District 15, Saqib Ali, who is now a key voice within the local Muslim community for dismantling American support for Israel following the Gaza war.
The Maryland Israel Development Center was an organization created in 1988 by Governor William Donald Schiffer to encourage Israeli companies to open offices in Maryland and to fund a recruitment effort to bring those companies to Maryland. MIDC receives over $300,000 per year from the state of Maryland and tens of thousands of dollars more from the counties. Most of the companies that the MIDC has recruited from Israel to Maryland have been arms manufacturers who sell weapons to the Israeli military. I'm not sure that organization, if it weren't already created, would be created today by Governor Moore. Maryland has no similar organization or entity to recruit companies from South Korea or Canada or England or Mexico or any other country in the world. And I've tried to ask legislators and leaders why. Why is this case? What's special about this one country, Israel, that's different than all the rest of the countries in the world? They all have great companies too. And nobody has been able to give me an answer. Nobody even wants to talk about it, frankly. Many of you legislators are immigrants or children of immigrants. Ask yourself, does this make sense to have a dedicated funding stream for this one country? And, all of that doesn't even address the human rights issues, which we all know about, which have all been in the news for the past year and, frankly, for decades before that. Please defund the MIDC, or at least open it up to make it for all countries of the world.
That bell is the time's up signal at the legislative priorities meeting. Maryland's Office of People's Counsel is the state-appointed consumer advocate on behalf of the state's electric and gas ratepayers. Last week, the office filed a complaint with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission that the regional transmission organization of which Maryland is a part, called PJM, has not been just and reasonable and has overburdened the state's consumers. Here is David Lapp, the People's Counsel, who filed the complaint.
PJM operates a regional market for capacity, which is intended to ensure the electric system stays reliable for customers. And that market is really a constructed market based on rules that PJM creates for itself. It likes to talk about the market as just reflecting supply and demand. And of course, supply and demand do play a role in the market, but it is a market of PJM rules. And our complaint essentially is that those rules are operating to the disadvantage of customers and are not producing just and reasonable rates, which are required under the Federal Power Act, which is administered by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. And that those market rules for the past auction, which occurred this past summer in July, produced a 800% increase in prices for customers. The overall market cost from that went from $2.2 billion to $14.7 billion in 1 year's change. And that by itself, we think, evidences problems with those market rules. And so what our complaint is about fixing those market rules for the next auction, because our fear is that the next auction could be even worse than this past auction.
What is your expectation of what it will look like on the ratepayers' actual electric bill?
We are looking at increases of over $200 a year for customers as a result of the capacity market increases and also costs that customers are paying to keep retired plants that were planned for retirement, to keep those online and available.
You are referring to the Brandon Shores. These are coal-fired plants that are on a schedule to retire, but because there is no new generation, the PJM has argued that these need to remain and that they will be compensated at a higher rate than the wholesale market itself. What is wrong with that?
These plants are not actually generating a lot of megawatt hours. Collectively, the two plants are, I believe, are a little around 2,000 megawatts of capacity. But these plants are operating at what we call in our world low capacity factors. In other words, they are one of the units at Brandon Shores, I think, was producing about 6% of its capacity a year. Another one, I think, closer to 20%, sort of on average. The problem is that customers are paying under PJM's tariff this extra money outside of the market to keep those plants available for reliability purposes, but then PJM doesn't count those plants at all in the capacity market auction, which the price in that auction is jumping dramatically, in part because those units are not included or accounted for.
What is the legal argument you are making in your complaint?
The Federal Power Act requires utility rates that are regulated at the federal level, and that includes transmission and generation, wholesale generation. And we are saying that PJM's auction is producing an unjust and unreasonable result. And so customers are essentially paying twice. And so we would say that would be inconsistent with decades of law that says what a just and a reasonable rate is.
What other arguments about the rules of the market do you disagree with?
They aren't including all of the resources that are available to support reliability in the capacity market. And some of those resources are intermittent resources like solar, wind, and storage. Those they are not required to participate in the capacity market, and yet they are available to support reliability.
So how would you include them?
PJM has a process to basically give capacity credit to wind and solar. So they already are able to provide capacity, and PJM already includes them, but they rate them based on their availability. They rate different resources different ways, and they are able to participate in the capacity market. They're just not required to do so. And what we're saying is they should not have a wholesale exemption from participating in that market. And by including them, it lowers that cost for customers.
David Lapp, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
In Prince George's County, Route 1, Baltimore Avenue, the main street in College Park through the University of Maryland, has gotten a makeover. Prince George's Council member Eric Olson represents College Park.
There are 5-foot bike lanes on each side of the road, added medians to the middle of the road, planted medians that eliminated what we all referred to as the suicide lane, created protected turn lanes. We were able to close off a lot of the curb cuts. There's also better pedestrian crossings. The lights are timed better. We have newer traffic lights. We also have street lighting as well. We've slowed down traffic, but it moves more effectively and efficiently. You're supposed to only go 25 miles an hour in the core of College Park, and then it increases to 35 miles an hour further up. In downtown College Park, there's a fence, and this was put in earlier, not as part of this project.
And you're keeping the fence?
The fence is staying, yeah.
Speak a little bit to Prince George's County as a whole, because the county has had a lot of difficulty with pedestrian safety, and your numbers are worse than almost anyone around you.
No, that's true. That's true. Prince George's County, unfortunately, leads the region in pedestrian fatalities. And that's one of the reasons why last year I passed the Walkable Urban Streets Act in Prince George's County, which addresses county urban roads in the county, near our metro stations, in our more urban areas, so that so the standards have now changed to be much friendlier pedestrians and cyclists. When there's redevelopment, now the regulations state that the developer has to make the improvements.
Prince George's County Council member Eric Olson, thank you.
Thank you very much.
In Montgomery County, the still relatively new school superintendent, Thomas Taylor, went to the county's legislative delegation to seek a change in state law that would allow the district to return to means testing before providing support for AP and IB testing fees.
The budget issues that resulted in the elimination of the Montgomery Virtual Academy have not gone away. In fact, taking a look at our outlook over the next few years, it's pretty grim. As a result, we need to be able to maximize the funds that we have available for the greatest impact. In that vein, we are asking for some relief to the current blueprint requirement that school systems pay all costs associated with advanced placement and international baccalaureate course exams. We know that there are some students in our school system for which covering these costs are imperative. We also have students who do not need this assistance, and we have many students who are in the middle. We are asking that each county board be permitted to implement an income-based approach to address these fees. This will allow us to continue aid for our families with the greatest need.
That's all for this episode. Be sure to check out our feature interview series that comes out Friday mornings. I Hate Politics is produced by me, Sunil Dasgupta, and assistant producer Adama Gay, with support from University of Maryland, Baltimore County. I direct UMBC's political science program at the universities at Shady Grove in Montgomery County, where, among other things, we explore and learn about politics, government, and society close to home. Music for this episode comes from Sting Pain Index, a band that straddles Maryland, Virginia, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, and Texas. Jeff Amos on guitar and lead vocals, Scotty Lowen on guitar and bass, Sam Legrone on bass and synth, Ben Heath on guitar and synth, and Montgomery County's own James Hedrick on the drums. Their new album is called Songs About Fracking and is now available on Bandcamp. If you want to share your music on the show or know someone else who might want to, please email us at producer@ihbpod.org. See you next time.
A trophy left by a stray cat. I prick my finger on the sharp part and say the F word to and at myself and just throw it away. Evidence lacking any fingerprints.